Hey, it's Kate. I hope you're having a great day. What's in the garden today? I am rebuilding this very old and broken garden bed. I've already cleared out all the weeds and plants, so now I have good access to the whole bed, which is great because I want to make this process as easy as possible. Unfortunately, there are still going to be a few challenges to deal with. So of course, the first step to replacing a garden bed is to make a plan. My plan is to combine this broken garden bed with the area next to it that includes a dwarf cherry tree and herbs. And it's gonna match in size with the long bed next to it, so it's gonna look good. Now, because there's already a tree here, we don't want to change the soil level around it. Burying a tree deeper up its trunk could lead to rot and decay, which would be real bad. So the solution I decided on is a two-tier bed, a lower level around the tree and an upper level for the raised bed veg garden space. With a plan in mind, the next step is to get the space cleared and prepared. I've already done most of the plant clearing. Now I'm ready to get the old wood out of here. Except in my case, I have these two trellises that are actually built onto this raised bed. I think I can make some temporary supports so I don't have to actually move them, and then I can just build around them. So after laying out some tarps, the first thing I did was get these supports built for the trellises. I used scrap wood that was laying around and got something that's only mostly precarious, but it'll be good enough to hold the trellises for now. Then I can start removing the old boards. The pieces from around the cherry tree were really just scrap pieces that I had laid there with the intention of being temporary. I guess it's been a bit longer. And then the raised bed. The old wood was rotten enough that I could just peel them off by hand. I did have to unscrew a few of the screws, but yeah, the top pieces were fairly rotten, and the bottom pieces were really rotten. These boards have actually been in the garden for over 10 years. They were originally from two separate beds, and after discarding the more rotten boards at the time, these were the better ones that I repurposed to make one bed. So now we have two piles of dirt, and this is the main tricky part of replacing an existing raised bed. They are already full of soil and you have to work around it. After taking away the structure, you hope the soil doesn't collapse, but also you need some wiggle room to build the new bed around the old soil. So I dug out some from the sides so that I could line up the new bed with the other beds around it. I took off a few inches on the front and the side and checked multiple times to see if I had taken off enough. With that done, I'm now fully finished prepping the space. So here's the view of how it lines up with the other beds. It's Saturday morning. It's supposed to rain tonight and tomorrow, so I need to stop messing around and just get this done. Now that I'm ready to actually build this bed, the first step is to double check all my measurements and write them down on my notepad so I can start cutting the new boards. I'm starting with the end pieces and I need 4 of them. This is the only measurement that I know for sure because it's the same as the bed next to it. Now the length of the bed. I need to decide if it's going to be exactly the same length as the long bed next to it. I went a few inches shorter to leave extra space in the pathway. So I need 2 pieces that are about 9.5 feet long, and then I also need the little mini posts for inside the corners. Some might say, Kate, you just tore out a wooden bed because it was rotten and now you're going to replace it with another wooden bed? That sounds foolish. And sure, It might be, but there's a variety of reasons to choose between the variety of raised garden beds available. Personally, I've chosen to stick with cedar. Cedar should outlast standard construction grade lumber, and it's something that I know how to work with. I really enjoy making things, and because it's a raw material, I can make whatever size and shape I want with it. Plus, I already have all the tools and a garden full of wooden beds, so it will fit right in. And I have to say, seeing all the stuff that you've built with your own two hands is extremely satisfying. Now, while I was building this, I also did a bit of extra work, which was setting up an irrigation hose to this bed. It's definitely easier to put that in now. I'll be setting up the irrigation for this bed and showing my full irrigation system for all my raised beds in another video, so stay tuned for that. Now, back to building the bed, which is going really smoothly. With both of the long sides on, I started on the other end around the cherry tree. I had to dig a bit of a trench for this end board so that it would sit properly, and that's because this area has a slight slope. And you might have noticed one of the long boards is actually a 2x4 instead of a 2x6 like the others, and that's also because of the slope. I thought I might as well use a smaller board for the top of the hill rather than digging in part of a bigger one. So I got it all screwed together, and then I realized I had made a mistake. There's always a mistake. I took a minute to weigh my options, but decided I needed to do this right and unscrew the posts because I'd cut them for the full height of 2 boards. But this end is only 1 board tall, so they're too long. I marked the new size and this is too short to cut like this. Fortunately, I've got the workmate out anyways. It can hold the board for me, and it's much safer and easier to make this cut. So install them a second time. You can also see my impeccable camera work here, which is very helpful to see the back of my hat. So we've got the first layer all done, the main footprint of the bed. You can really see how this is going to look. I checked if all the boards are level, or level enough that is, and how it lines up. I did a few adjustments to get it in the right position, but otherwise we're on track. So now I can get on to making the second layer of boards. I'm doing an alternating pattern on the board placement. On the first level, the overlap was in one direction, and on the second level, the overlap is in the other direction. It's the same look that I've done with all my other beds. Now I just need to decide how long the second level should be. I had a rough idea of the size, but I knew that I would have to decide with the boards there. So I laid one down and used the blue square to decide exactly how long the upper level should be. Now the end of the second level seems like it might be tricky, but it's going to be pretty much the same as the corners of the lower level. There's just one board missing. And a benefit of a cross piece for a long bed like this, it will help to hold the long sides and prevent the middle of the bed from bowing out over time from the pressure of the soil inside the bed. All right, the bed is built. We just need to get the whole setup finished. So again, I was checking to make sure that it was in the right position with the other beds, and now we can take the trellises off their supports and start filling in the edges. My raised beds are mainly filled with mineral soil, which means it's like regular soil from the ground, like topsoil, which includes things like sand, small gravel pieces, maybe some clay, and I also amend it with compost. But it does not include peat or coco coir as a base. In many cases, this is totally fine for growing. The other typical recommendation for raised beds is raised bed mix, which is not a helpful description. I believe raised bed mix is more or less a combination of potting mix and topsoil, so it's somewhere between the two. The potting mix lightens the mixture because of its peat or coir base, so you get a material that's fluffier than topsoil, but maybe more structured and includes more micronutrients which are typically present in mineral soil. Today, I'm sticking with what I have, and in the spirit of hugelkultur and reducing waste, I did use some of the rotten boards in the extension for the upper bed to fill in that space. I managed to put 4 of them in the bottom there and cover them over with soil. I did try to space them a little bit away from the new wood just to help prevent rot on the new wood. Not sure if that's going to make a difference, but it made me feel better, so that's what I did. For the cherry tree area, I used the soil from some old plant pots to fill in the gaps. Now I'm ready for the best part, fresh compost. I added several buckets to the upper level of the bed and decided the cherry tree needed a treat as well, so it got a few buckets too. I feel like this bed fits in so well with the entire garden, and it's the last piece of the puzzle to finishing this space. Now I've got one more bed that's going to be very functional going forward. I'm so happy with this. I think it turned out amazing. I am excited to get my fall crops planted and to get the irrigation set up. So for now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. I really need a shower.